Eddie run. That works really well. That's what I'm on.
Yeah, it's
Oh.
That's what I've been using.
Are you gonna have this circle?
What?
Are you gonna have this circle?
My laptop is saying it cannot even find Wi-Fi.
Awkward.
I'm on.
I'm ready.
What it's worth. I'm
You
on.
ready to try one
NDT.
thing real quick on your laptop? See if you
Yeah.
can get my internet. It'll take like 6 seconds. I just have to type in 2 commands.
I did the whole like go on airplane mode, go off airplane mode.
Oh. Oh, I know the issue here.
What does
Yeah, I was gonna say use the mouse is best.
It sure looks like it is, doesn't it? I can scooch over a little bit too. That's really inconvenient.
Yeah, it's gonna get move this.
Oh gosh, you're the key. The light in the dark.
Oh, that's one of those camera projectors. I always thought that was like a down over like the transparency projectors. I was like, okay, this is better, I guess. Like it's exactly like.
I liked how you could like roll the transparency. I don't know why, but it was cool. Like
And also, there's just something about I don't know the image that would be created
I
with
think I just connected
projecting
on a Wi-Fi network.
transparency contrast, where it's just like a stupid piece of paper. Why don't you just hold it up and show it to me?
Yeah.
Videoing this onto a screen, just write it on the wall.
I like the lamination ones because in math class they would turn out the lights and then I would just go to sleep.
That's another reason why they're superior.
How's everybody doing?
You know, I could use a little more sleep, but otherwise doing great. I have been graduating district debates this year, so it's nice to be back out there and seeing some national teams. I have this Michigan.
Hello, Alex.
Hi,
Very well.
Doll.
So you can see like maybe like over there. You probably shouldn't be that close to us.
Oh, here, this is the stage.
This is Will and I's kind of space. That's their kind of space.
The stage.
Where it all happens.
Yeah, I think you probably said for now.
I'll just jump.
Ellis is here. Shout out to Ellis.
What's up, dog?
Ricardo, are we recording yet?
Yeah.
We're live? Yeah, definitely. Shout out to Ellis.
We're all good. Sorry about the delay.
Margaret, I can try some stuff afterwards to see if it fixes it.
I'll just restart my computer after the
that's
debate.
probably
I
the best
just
way to do it.
Alright, are we
don't
ready?
have time to right now.
It will be in 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, ready.
Alright.
Wait, sorry.
Authentic exchange is impossible. All events have become non-events in their assumption of the form of the film script. Everything is pre-coded, and the distinction between film and war has been rendered null. Credible love guru Aaron Call once told us, if you say I love you, then you have already fallen in love with language, which is already a form of breakup and infidelity. Truly, the image of power is the power of the image. The image of the military is in no way distinct from its physical referent. Images have become fully militarized, military, fully virtual. The goal for disappearing actors witness to this, and is making porn through total integration as media spectacle. Now the global military apparatus parodies itself, having chief control, and the elimination of antagonists has become orbital. The reality principle takes leave of this earth with the absolute pre-coding of the Powell Doctrine. The West parodies itself in gratuitous acts of violence epitomized by the banal images of Abu Ghraib. We live in the epoch of war porn, not knowing when the pornography ends and war begins. American military presence has been overtaken by its imagistic power revealed. A shallow void pushing it towards self-annihilation. Live by the spectacle, die by the spectacle. The will to transparency of global military power no longer aims to kill or win, but to abolish the enemy's existence, to extinguish the light of her sky. But in 5 there will be nothing but a violence of consensus beginning world with no tomorrow. The pointless task of question, political games, war aims to alive at the lowest common denominator. New world order, consensual television with images of accurate persons of humiliation, power, inflicts on self the shock, which becomes parody of violence of war itself, and pornography become the abjection of war, able to simply be about killing, simulacrum of power without aim, without enemy, capable only of its own humiliation, power no longer knows what to do, counterstand itself, useless in negation, self-parody, and human error. The Americans overtaken by the power of the West is constrained, the versus statistics laugh, not help know with images are true or false, will be uncertain because we are immersed in the images, integrated into war, images become virtual, war itself, images become pornographic, those who live by the spectacles act by it, the corresponds to the hope of the simulacrum, military power, all violence directed against transparency, the other eliminated symbolically, Cold War, not to abolish the enemy, it's always the same problem with transparency, make them appear more obscene, the masquerade crowd, seeing combination of war, the most ferocious image of ghostly, reversible prisoner, completely hooded into the reality that America has electrocuted itself to make war mean something. The will to reality is in fact the generative point of violence to supplement irrationality, and mystery terminates in its opposite. We are gorged with meaning. Trump steaks, Trump water, Trump magazines, these things are killing us. We are all Chris Christie trapped in the prison house of meaning that is the global Mar-a-Lago to enclose the globe within semi-outer reality begets its own implosive violence against singularities, the form form of information devours its own content, facts, and evidence. Truth only make the world more unreal. We need to relocate the nexus of global violence from geopolitical events to the representational domain. Our driven to reinforcing what the objects of wars represent ensures a disposition towards violence. The results of attempts to secure meaning to locate violence in the warfare is not events with the representational domain. This is stifling faith and representation for transparency, liberation, and stuff. The real will truly ends up being self-defeated to clear the fog of war. Ends up reproducing and criticizing. Depopulation requires another democratic necessity to be established. Similar who continues to proliferate. Its reality affects we members of the public want to leave mediation can be removed, cannot be fully revealed through representation. Always work by imposing meaning onto things and events to become representable. Everything which turned to information becomes objects of endless speculations. I total uncertainty solving the information images of war might have been caused to come to a will to information to meaning the image levels the event by virtue of mass global with different exchange representational circulation murder singularity antibiotic singularity of the event gives way to endless representation whether it appears to have political purpose or not to make war means something is generally put about regorge with meaning is killing Christ and nihilism produce something in the opposite order a panic stricken production of the real what needs to be thought as implicit violence for which you don't have a language picture see to capture it implicit violence media technology seeks meaning mobilizing war machines no longer have a clearly identifiable object implicit violence is a new way of war that must remain foggy inwardly driven on starting to give the impression that media can be found the visuals must be turned into appearance meaningful that rediscovered beliefs take over what Colbert referred to as truth and history from his former enemies humanity has to create enemies from within free from his former enemies has to create an inhuman metastasis of global violence that is the product of persistence attraction and singularity including death. This form of violence is viral distorts our immune system capacity to resist. Why speak when one can communicate? Communication, a carrier pigeon, a phone call, owl mail, a birthday card, Xmas letter, postcard, post-it note, MySpace, Facebook, C-post, regular mail, SMS, blog, email, poster, advertisement, or whispering. Everything about communication seems to have been said, but really nothing has. This is a logical consequence of the art of the deal, the death of communication, transparent dialogue, premised on a tautological form of ritual transparency which devours the singularity of self and the other. That's a 5-year-old's argument. No, it's not. You started it, Baudrillard. In Not Everything About Communication has already been said. Nothing has. We speak of consumption, the structural logic of science invested in communication, information invested, though it affects immersion, respect. All we really communicate is the problem of society. Expanding exhaustion of the fiction of communication vanishes to access, transparency, and social relationship, but use of complexity, collective suffocation, not truly urban message, the cult of specificity of communication, modern vision, human production, circulation of speech based on the reality principle, the failure of speech is communication. You're talking about it. It's because it doesn't exist. Language becomes a pure medium of pure medium of communication, contact message, reduce one dimensional function speech with that communication operation, communication performance faster, more institutionalized, less contact beats, do not touch information, energy, addition, nothing's more beautiful than words crossing vegetation, so we invented traffic structure moves without crossing the singularity, this whole thing against lost forms, get lost forms of contradiction, intensity, quite the form of communication, there's no stasis, only metastasis, it's more alienated control given to you over the external world. Transparent communication is fundamentally obscene. Love is replaced by simulacra of pornography, transparency is totalitarianism, subjection, social relations, the dismantling negativity, nobody says what they mean, they certainly don't mean what they say, difference for language, which is a constituent gap that makes it necessary. A world of information is a world of machine enlightenment, ideals are coterminous with the elimination of otherness, 115 transparency simulating, gripping social consumption submits process, demand for transparency, accelerate them, negative alterity, disturbs smooth communication, transparency stabilizes by eliminating the otherness, nobody means the word precisely what the neighbor does, the difference is no small fibers like a ripple of water throughout the entirety of language worlds and sets of information will be reduced to a machine decided positively demand by transparency of information, compulsion, torture, applied to human beings, soul requires realm with complicates the other claims to be a certain impenetrability, total elimination cause a spiritual burnout demands complete separation of the private sphere, human existence not transparent even to itself, compulsive transparency lacks the same sensitivity, respect for others, can never be eliminated, all computational basis for withdrawing or removed in the state of transparency makes the world more shameless, more English, transparent relationship is dead, lacking attraction, vitality, more information, not lead to better stage intuition, transcends the growing mass of information, crippling higher judgment, less knowledge achieves more than reward for happiness, to rest in dystopian space, a society that no longer admits the negativity gap would be without happiness, love, without something that's hidden aside for time with you. Now, we are all hostages to the media intoxication induced to believe in the reality of the world, in the reality of war. Communication becomes a form of blackmail in the name of that reality, the will to project itself into a yes-no stance, simulates war, and completes the system of domination of the globe, yet radical otherness, impossible exchange haunt the system. You should bet on those forms. Shapiro in 14 opposition wars, he's based on the assumption of discursive viability, projecting oneself into imagination of true speakers, about democracy, make better decisions. The anti-war states take for granted that we should clarify policies, naturally put ourselves in shoes of national strategies, choosing policy options. What we know about war comes from policy. Hollywood fails, so it becomes war. You don't have to share an overflow of tech wars, the psychedelic carnival, elaborate test, new weapons, not even specific wars like in Iraq. Another forward against the wars, not event. It's absurd to take a stance on a specific war. The hostage taking place, the warrior hostage on the screen, driving the logic of turns and presents a forced binary choice of life just to take a position for or against. This is binary, yes, no logic against course. That is no value. The heart of the order, establishing shared values, which precedes the real devastation of wars, kept at bay by simulation at a certain speed of information. Things start to lose their sense. War employs a political and radar scheme to be methodologically dark, and the more concentrated this is becomes, the more it becomes vulnerable to a single point, a single hacker, managed to launch the LOB virus, which circulate devastating entire networks like global fusion of terrorism and domination to lend the game support. They must furnish reality effect their disappearance victims of torture and murder are required to provide data to keep the electronic kill game going, especially if they can be photographed. The images sent out war point the excessiveness of power truth, but now veracity does not help to know whether the images are true. If all the images are definitively integrated with war operates the dark underside of war itself. The 1AC is an operation of theory fiction that cultivates illusory and surreal readings of resolution and infuses play with language of semiotic insurrection of poesis that combats the will to reality by writing graffiti on the resolution, even as it writes the resolution as graffiti. We meet the production of war signs with an anti-semiotic counterforce of radical thought is the play with meaning that introduces fuzziness to the writing of life as a binary aberration trail. In 14, we are the targets of a bombardment of science innovation live under the dictatorship of science graffiti, race their anti-semiotic counterforce hostages of meaning intoxication, due to believe in the world like graffiti, rights, but intensified packs and the code continue guerrilla writing by other means. This now counter guerrilla warfare against reality principle, theoretical terrorism, pataphysics, and attempt to create a different reality through imagination. They fight reality through the use of imaginary forces, through illusion and deceit. The only tragedy of the science of imaginary solution ideas create their own reality thinking is a performed act that builds this parallel world. Does not seek to penetrate nor discover hidden aspect realities depicted. Is not depicted but challenge. Theory should not analyze but deny contradiction. Germany has to create the illusion, establish a power seduction that makes one lose the path of reality. Theory can seduce reality. Reality is an illusion. All thought must seek to unmask it. Reality must have time to mask constitute itself as decoy fighting. Richard's writing theory, fiction, notion may be true effects of realist poetry, anthropology, out of writing touches the original notion of poetry, integrate something cipher, down cipher, create illusion, make it event, make it event, what it's clear, render in unintelligible, what is intelligible, accentuate the false transparency of the world's own cipher, a terroristic confusion, a radical dissolution of the real. The drug dealer of sociology is not interested in rehabilitating of the worst, the introduction, symbolic change, by construction, introduce different views of things, delivers necessary contrary, hence whitewash reality, we can be scrutinized, only possible reality, only like radical other. Again, reality war reveals itself display of power, which seeks to intervene in reality, said fictions of every does not seek truth, he wants to change the world's game by diverting it from its truth. The will to transparency loves the pornographic adventure carnival and also invests in it as well. Picture in for the reprocessing of destitution become equivalent of oil, the positive extortion of spectacle, popular charitable constant material exploitation is there to extract raw material from the misery of people, which are psychological nourishment for the rest of the people's destitution becomes an adventure. We are consumer spectacle of poverty in our efforts to alleviate poverty and reproduce symbolic positive economic rights will not be complete so long as you can exploit the world. Symbolic Christ only can believe is able not able to feed on this drug which serves an aphrodisiac. The West will produce its capacity, devours itself. Our kindness merely add to the catastrophes of the epidemic and daily pictures. West will break down through not much gleam of this shame. There's a line of Projector parts everyone's supposed to master disaster merely reinforce the sense of guilt humanity because it cannot accept and will prefer to stage no death in the process.
Let me get a sip of water.
Of course. Yes, it's a little cramped. Okay, cool. Does the affirmative call to reduce military presence in any of the 3 topic regions?
This is a fundraiser to raise awareness about the problems.
Fundraisers raise funds.
Hold on,
awareness,
no,
but
it's a
go ahead.
fundraiser to raise awareness about the problems of awareness.
Okay, well, can you unpack that a little bit as it relates to the resolution? So we have military presence in the Greater Horn of Africa and Northeast
Are you
Asia.
trying to play the questions game with me?
Well, cross-ex does involve asking
is,
questions.
in fact,
Did you
a
just
questions
lose?
game.
I don't know, because there's a little bit of time before the judges decide, but I am curious if the affirmative engages the resolution
Hold
question.
on. Your response to that question means I need to ask you a question.
Okay.
It's serious.
Sure, sure.
If you were to paint yourself as an abstract painting,
Uh-huh.
what colors and
You
shapes would
can
you
Turing
use
test
and
us
why?
later, sir.
No. I want, like, I'm on your side here. I want to
Yeah,
give you the
I
answer you're
understand.
looking for, but first I have to know if
yeah.
you're a robot.
Orange and circle, and then can you answer the question of does the
Well,
affirmative
hold on,
engage the
that's not good
resolution
enough.
question?
If you were to fly to the moon, can you describe how you would feel upon such an event?
Seriously?
I hate to be
We've
rude,
done
but
the
this
Turing
isn't.
test a lot. We've debated you a few times. I
And
feel
you
like
still
you
haven't-
know.
haven't passed it.
You
Alright,
haven't
well then it
proved
seems
you're not
that
a
you know we're
computer.
cyborgs and you should debate us accordingly.
Not cyborgs.
You're
Robots.
cyborgs?
Robots, correct.
Wait, you're
So
saying you
I
have,
just-
you have unlimited
Well,
hard drive
well,
space? That's
just
not fair.
one
We can't
quick
debate
thing.
against Google
That's not
brains.
fair.
Because
That's
this
not
is a
fair.
new
You get to Google
affirmative.
things during the debate.
Because this is a new affirmative, we didn't have like much time to sort
It's
of
not
prepare
a
and
new
discuss.
We read 3 new cards and we disclosed the rest of the
I sort of want to finish my question because there's at least some new arguments that we really want to engage and like honestly debate. I just would appreciate some guidance. Does the
We told
affirmative
you
call
this
for a
is
reduction
When
in
we are
military presence?
criticizing the frame of that question
Uh-huh.
in the way that it presumes a neutral mode of communication and
Okay.
the proliferation of information.
Sure. I want to ask about that. What has caused the rise of Trump? There's a lot of analogies that it's sort of caused by this proliferation of meaning. What's the process by
Our
which
argument is
Trump's
that cause is entirely delinked from effect.
Mhm.
The attempt to mine back over the whole nihilist history of media in the West is one that will always be an incomplete project. The
Sure.
rise of Trump, in my opinion,
Yeah.
I think it has a lot to do with the way that leftists
Mhm.
and even people on the right attempting to attack him
Okay.
merely contributed to his spectacularization.
Can I ask a
or much
follow-up
like
to
the
that?
way that this topic contributes
so
to the
I have a
spectacularization.
real quick follow-up.
Or people just love great water,
So
great
just based
magazines,
on
and great
the
steak.
theme
Margin's
of
a good question.
spectacularization, How is everything you two do not spectacularization? Like the posse you bring around, the music
Are
you're
you
playing.
trying to make me feel as bad as you feel?
No,
Because
I don't
it's
feel bad
Saturday,
at all
and
right
I
now.
refuse to feel that bad.
Okay, I
You
guess
do
I just
you,
have.
but how are you not
How is it not?
spectacularizing
That's
yourself?
correct and precisely our point. There is no option that is not simulated.
Sure,
the
I
question
understand.
is merely
Um,
an enchanted versus disenchanted.
Yeah, I
we
just have,
are
simulation.
master
I have one
magicians.
last question. The first Baudrillard
Sorcerers.
card talks about a parody of violence, and then the Atrips and Debris card talks about sort of like the ethics of Colbert, the ethos of Colbert. Why is that you all?
That card does not. That card describes the status quo as truthiness. It doesn't make a claim that we are Colbert.
Oh, so you're not like irony or Colbert.
We have never made an irony argument against you, and you have never been able to make a link argument against that,
Whoa.
though you have tried a number of times.
That's totally.
I just the one AC did highlight. Can I have a flash drive? I can't find mine.
Oh, I just.
Sure, I believe you do, right. While I'm working on that, it's 4 often in the case.
Thank you. How hot in here?
Do y'all need the 1AC back at all? I don't want to like hold it for y'all. Can you get?
Read it, study it, enjoy it.
We did that in East Lansing. Now we're debating it.
Well, the parts that at least.
You learn things.
Of course.
How cold is it in East Lansing right now?
It's actually not too bad. It was.
Spring almost.
Well, so I'm from Wisconsin originally, which is
Oh.
like even worse. Yeah, so I was wearing flip flops yesterday.
Something might be right about everything that they've said, but this still hasn't answered the question. Why would you vote for them? You could vote negative and still agree with everything that they've said and give them a ton of speaker points. The mechanism for change is not flushed out. Be skeptical that their critical theory gets us anywhere. Henneken 13 points to make stories for scholars offered on alternatives and merely suggesting the open, locally sensitive as a person of politics and liberal approaches for. If these approaches are emancipatory, then they lack any clear program as to how they might be carried out. It is clear that what a little emancipatory content critical theory theorized it has been more than an exhaustive judging policy making outcomes on the basis of the goal may provide critical theorists and endless possibilities to demonstrate the same approach is a little to develop the academic and political understandings of the world we live in. In fact, no greater sharp person could have been imagined the ability to become the critical debates around policy mission. Do they even have new debate solvency, new debate inherency? If we didn't go for topicality, could you honestly explain to a third party what voting affirmative does? What does raising awareness to prevent funds actually do accomplish? How do they escape their own foundational critique when they are the same sensationalism that they are critiquing Trump of being? It's a voting issue. It's even if critical affirmatives have these burdens, presume a negative stanza plan, stanza clearly explained reasons to claim the United States should retain its military presence in the Greater Horn of Africa exclusively for disaster response. I've forgotten to include this next part, but eliminate all other military presence. Timely intervention for presence is key to effective response. In 15, effective coordination and response capability needed for additional disaster response would influence recovery or coordination works. Fluidly countries attack and natural disasters are able to define and coordinate operational activities within the military and increasingly have a shot of new challenges outside of disaster, including situational awareness containing higher efforts with detection, preparation, and vaccination, and training within the clear benefits of military systems and disaster providing communication capabilities, extended professional logistical coordination to provide engineering support and health and situation infrastructure, airlift dealing with facilities and casualties, health infrastructure, and military assets, and inclusive self relief under recovery efforts. Key to support overall disaster response and otherwise unmitigated disasters are frequent and devastating. Hue in 7, the Horn of Africa suffers frequent natural disasters commonly result in loss of life, destruction, infrastructure, and reduction of early warning system exists for response analysis can provide a regional understanding as well as an associated risk lag. Next off is frame subtraction for chart links. So when you see advances a totalizing set of oppressors and the oppressed groups, it's not that the conception of oppression is false, but that the frame overdetermines and hampers resistance content. In 93, the configuration does not that identification with the oppressing and the oppressor. Such critics presume they provide a counter against the things that they are. However, the mythic identities of oppressor and the oppressed with essential overdetermined whether civilians, villains, and victims will be. There are problems with the critical practice criticism. They become too totalistic. Such critical beings respond to not conditions of the agents, but it remains the theory itself. The question remains when the saturated economic space of the relate playing dominant potent structure, the powerless and the oppressing. How thus providing ourselves and able to influence their power structure. Then, given what they're reading of the Gulf War is overly deterministic essentialism. Avoid that extreme Hobbes and 7. The Baudrillard understands the Gulf War to reduce it to complex political issues, categories of hyper reality, erasing concrete determinants. Religion, war movers, context does not account for the political economic dimensions of all the essentialism, though cultures rest split in signs of observable social institution practices and illusions are not an inverse sociological analysis. War can be reconnected to antecedents to social sciences that required to understand the truthfulness. Baudrillard pushes his arguments to extremes, so yet in shouting the he served to obfuscate the nuance of the substance and his contribution to the body of the knowledge. We can defend the rest of their advocacy and negate only certain parts. Two in our consolidation saw is the best alternative. One is no claim means that they part the one AC can become the nexus question by the 2A, or we should reciprocally get to conditionally critique their friends and narrow the basic parts of disagreement by the 2, and our 2 is praxis. Our model teaches a form of engagement that corrects flaws in political strategies rather than an all or nothing approach. 3 is agreement is good, negating the whole act makes the only extreme stance is strategic. We should debate framing strategies rather than the impact turns to injustice. 4 is its very frame structure auto gives them background. Just defend the stances of the 1EC. Last off is topicality violation. The affirmative doesn't meet the topic versus presence means physically being in the topically designated locations. Code 97, the presence meant to be the factual condition of being present means being in one place, not elsewhere. Being in the same place as something. The act must quantitatively reduce that factor. In 15, reduce makes something less than amount. Independently, U.S. has some sovereign government attribute, but not individuals or topical Hayworth. In 10, states and plural U.S. and context to station choosing the union the term for people as a plural connotation that phrase implies that people who are the same sovereign states are referring to federal units as not refer to people as a nation above points of corroborated the federal character of the phrase U.S. over implies the sovereign the phrase United States suggests that the states are retaining healthy sovereignty after entering a federal union. Reasons to vote. Impact 1 is limits via status. The link is undeniable and degree matters. They make the whole wiki topical and a bunch more. Check 2 is it hurts second order testing. This is their 13th new affirmative this year. Don't tell me it's not, because I've never heard you say disaster porn in the 1EC before, which is the thesis of their affirmative. This panel might raise an eyebrow if they scoured the quality of many of them, but second order tests never take place. That's why this is a limit, not a ground. Impact, sure there may be ground, but we don't defend it with a rigor because their prep game is stacked error overwhelmingly negative. The impact turns only appear true because there's an extension of the stacking, and the bar should be even higher against a new affirmative at the NDT. Greater fidelity to stasis is needed, otherwise because this is the last bite of the apple. One of our impacts is their impact. We know less about their themes and you know less about their themes and they know less about their themes when there's a lack of second order testing. External impact is critical thinking. That buzzword could theoretically spin their way, but it doesn't. Second order critical thinking is key to self-improvement, and read this through the lens of underprepared negatives that lack stasis, not untested but engrossed affirmatives. Paul in 92, critical thinking is essential, effective learning. Critical thinking can be defined in a number of different ways. 2 things are crucial. Critical thinking, not just thinking about thinking, which entails self-improvement. They think what's to impose restraint on thinking to raise the thinking to a level is not likely. Discipline, spontaneous thought, 1 thought, and important distinctions. Research needs to make them more reasoning subjective. 2, extend to frustrated quality of thinking. Don't understand that students simply assert things. We want them to reason the basis of evidence. Many teachers take it apart of the reasons features which are own witty or fluid and amusing or good thinking. Now, impact 2 is your gut. Does being prepared and informed matter to you? It might be for reasons that it matters to me. I can follow argumentative threads based on content, not instinct. For me, it was empowering to learn the 2 steps. If had I in an oddly way find this to be beautiful, but my reasons might differ for yours, and you might have your own value. I don't know. And for that reason, we should err against simply blowing up debate conventions simply because everyone's positive virtues can't be rigidly outlined. This applies to the value I find in informed clash, but spills over to much more. High theory is so quickly and foundationally shake away meaning that it inculcates being mean along the way. They'll call it callous privileges. Learn their critique of underlying values applies to them more than us. It's their epistemic communities that's more apt to suffer from groupthings that falsely posits high theory and no longer needing second order tests. Redick in 15. Left political conformity suffers from the socialization and immorality. They can put their fingers on the right one to humanity. They can struggle for to say that their impervious has no close keeping their rest ideas about their scholarship for fear they violate their certain ideological taboos of others will hate them. There's something unethical in the criticism on anyone who borrows through their current journals of thought and an impression of meanness. This is the game of the academic, cool, and high theory anti-humanist re-raising of the leftist fascination with shaking to the valley what seems to be a life scholarship slipped from critique to giving cruel treatment to experience of tender concern to privileging the cool male post. Structural theory encourages intellectual sadism, a professional which would do well to reflect on the scholars burn over what is worthy of protection. Academic cool disregards any form of correctness but the inherent correctness of theory itself. Anti-liberal cool denies value. Abstractions trump the realities. A distant attitude takes a toll. Post-structural critique as under-discussed conservative effort. High theory conveys which ideas go without saying and which requires cautious, rigorous defenses. Hampers social justice practice. A contingent topical virtue can teach the art of making a difference even if it moves the needle. This also exposes their uniqueness. Trick as a total fucking lie. The sky is not falling absent their totalized insights. Content in 15. One concept of theories among the critical theorists, there is an evil totality must be overturned. We don't know what evil will come and what will come after, but the evil totality, so anything will be better. The fantasy theme of what to believe in powerfully attractive. However, the specific kinds of work are necessary at this point. Invalidates idealistic approaches to change with invention, a single leap away. If you have not imagined a realizable alternative, what people will leap into his predisposition. This is what the most probable outcome. The hard work to invent a better alternative piecemeal. The left academics should now include alternative visions that appear feasible. There is a cynical, positive, no effective measure to guide towards their justice. T is not just the same as every other binary. The affirmative citizens, and they don't escape their own critique and should lose on presumption. Independently, there's an extra topical voter to critique on presence designated topic at justifies a topic links to our stasis. In fact, we tried pretty hard to not have the same old talking points. We've even created new standards, so we'll need to beat this topicality or not the general trope of framework. Now, the case debate, their deployment of irony inspires worse operations than the systems that they critique. Yes, there is a link. The one EC cites Colbert as a good form of activism. Wallace in 97 irony serves the most explicitly negative function of the that is critical, destructive. Irony singularly unuseful when it comes to constructing things. The actions replace hyper crises. It general troubles are great exposing corrupt regimes that human locally frustrated on negative protective establishing a spirit alternative environment and positive and down. Reading space on I don't really mean what I am saying, and here like the oppressiveness, the institutionalized, I don't have any successful for the ability to interact with the question without attempting subject to serious guy. Their tyranny debates sells oversaturation of meat and also reject their politics as overly nihilistic, turner and forward and based on nihilistic ambition with respect to process and environment based on the views of the masses scientific need for production of meanness, suppression, movement with a challenge the system from the point of meanness, exposure as sociological function, not convincing mass audience and broken down into selective constructing niches, exposure diversion of mass society's view and mass media, hyper reality meaning imploding on it, self-over pervasive mass audiences, no ground for to believe in the media, message or received consumer to be on the understanding demand of majority social scientists, targeted cultural objects are to diverse forms according to various practices patriarchal without the opposition to the system level of public debate and formal of politics. The F is nihilism. There's so much hope that establishes a narcissism. DA to the affirmative as well posture and there's passage to arrogance when the possible thinking about everyone. The cultural sectors complain that inferiority going to way to give the underworld subjectivity no only way to interpret the projection. There's no world being corresponding anything to see before projecting a different counter-anomaly in future directions of French and Iranian Marxists with through the computer that's talking to the kind of competition and increasing possibility of digital culture. Could this be new public sphere to discuss global policies representing integration? For their critique is reductive. They foreclose the essential ability to mobilize against the violence, disaster, porn is wrong, skin, and 99 the script trades in the economy of violence, dealing with the obstruction, totalizing and received every unthinkable portrayal, mobilizing the violence of the film sees his greatest intake, violent gestures instead of horror, finding what's the horror. She refused to do so, accumulates its own humble beginnings of horror, the total forgetting of past horrors, inscribing independent horrors with the other finitudes, language of the same during the horrifying tragedy back to like seeing the reborn throughout the ashes.
Ready? That water, Joe. There it is. Okay, ready?
Thank you.
Why is knowing good?
Because we think that there is material oppression that exists in the world, and the way to combat that material oppression is knowing that it exists.
What does that do? Why does knowing about it is sufficient to resolve any of this?
It's not that knowing alone is sufficient, which is why we've made a broader topicality argument about action, but absent knowing, it is impossible to do against it.
No action. My big question is...
Look, maybe you do no action after debate, but I take the things I do in debate and use them to
Didn't you just
action.
read like 3 pieces of content evidence that were like identifying some evil out in the world and being like, these people are oppressed, we've got to deal with this? It's like the exact wrong thing to do?
No. We've said that
that's
totalizing visions of oppressee and oppressor
That's
is
literally
bad.
what you said the point of debate is, to
No,
identify
I don't think
moral
I said that
wrongs
the point
and
of
combat
debate
them.
is to determine who are the oppressors and who are the
Okay,
oppressed.
my
Like,
next-
to say that is what I said
why
is
do we do
a
that?
serious
Why
misunderstanding.
do we locate people as oppressors or oppressed? I don't think we've done
I
that
think
at
the
all.
1AC analysis of Trump is pretty good there.
What?
Obviously Trump
Why?
is a dickbag and an asshole, but the
Clearly
description of
made it
him
that-
as
that's-
a totalizing evil.
You just said Trump is a dickbag and a scumbag. That's
I said
your
a
argument.
dickbag and an asshole, to be
Okay.
clear.
Anyway, that's your argument that you shouldn't do this.
But to
You
say
shouldn't
someone is an
identify-
Can I
asshole
clarify
doesn't
something,
mean that they're...
Please.
I think
I'm
you're
very
misunderstanding
confused.
content. Our argument is that it's not bad to identify good or bad actors. Our argument is that it matters how we frame those actors, particularly oppressed groups, which the affirmative certainly discusses. And in the totalizing frame that the 1AC uses, it both displaces agency and essentializes. I mean, I can find like particularized examples, but
Which
a lot of
parts
the
are you
examples.
picking out of?
Well, there's two links. One are the moments of the frames. I can give contextual examples, but you sort of cut me off before I could do that. And then the second one is predicated on any of the references to Gulf War did not happen.
The irony
Why?
as well, to be clear.
And irony too, because those are like case turns that
We
we're
never
picking
made an
up.
irony argument. Can we just agree that?
No, we disagree with that. I think your
Oh,
first
okay.
Baudrillard card discusses an embrace of the parody of violence,
Yeah,
which
we're
is a
saying the
political
U.S. is
methodology.
parodying itself now. We don't affirm that.
Oh, okay, well, the second card from Attrip and Debris
But didn't-
certainly embraces Colbert's truthiness as a mechanism
No,
of
it
question.
doesn't.
I
It
thought
says
your,
I disagree.
I thought your
Right.
trip and debris evidence also says that oversaturation is something
Yeah.
that's good, which seems to be irony if nothing else.
My other question about this sort of like fundamentalizing or framing about the oppressors and the oppressed, why doesn't your counterplan link to this where it talks about disasters?
Because that someone has disasters happen to them does not mean that their entire identity is an oppressed person.
Exactly.
We have
And
not
Where have we
totalized.
made that claim?
all your discussion
Where-
You
of-
just said that we did that, and I'm saying we didn't. Like,
Well,
obviously,
yes,
you
but
didn't
the
say that
reason
people
you
in the
did it-
greater horn
the
of
reason
Africa that
you
have
did
natural
it
disasters.
also seems to indicate that the 1AC didn't
I think
do
the
it
best
either.
link to the 1AC is when y'all discuss sort of the violence that occurs at detention facilities and say that those forms of violence literally destroy the meaning of individuals there and cannot be comprehended.
That's not a claim we've ever made. Okay,
No,
I believe that
I'll
the
start
word.
prep when you stop talking. Start it.
That was kind of rude. Could
To
you not?
that cafe, the
Sorry.
librarian
still waiting on Emily. Everybody's here. Yes.
Is there an order? Or
Yeah.
something?
That's why I just want to make sure I was double checking. The case debate. I have a bunch of stuff to say at the top of the case. Presumption, critique, or kick, or whatever. Counterclaim. Topicality.
There's no P to pick out of.
There's no what to pick out of?
I was just joking.
Oh yeah, that's true. Okay, inclusive critique. Isn't that what Turner likes to call it? All right.
The handy eight.
One sec. Can you just hit me with that order one more time?
Yeah, the case debate with a lot before I'm addressing their stuff.
Okay.
Presumption, critique, counterclaim.
Okay. I got it now.
Alright, everybody good?
Ye that live by the spectacle will die by it. Debate's mode of communication is one that naturalizes the split between subject-sender and object-receiver of message. The hyper-positivistic form naturalizes capitalistic modes of exchange. As speak acts become interchangeable as scripted pornographies, even as it necessitates a will to transparency, driving global militarization. Their research methodology, which is a dissent to every argument in the 1NC, is MSNBC versus Fox News, while confirming the drive to master the world, to script it in advance, to reveal it through knowledge. The revealing of Abu Ghraib did not change militarization. It confirmed it. This merely confirms the global will to eliminate the other's symbolic space. Against this, we have caught debate in the trap of its own making. We force the rules to violate themselves as we scrawl graffiti as an anti-semiotic counterforce onto the activity. We implode this model by proving by its own terms that it is absolutely insufficient. We transparently will prove that transparently is bad. Case debate at the top. Irony bad. No link. We clarified this in the cross-ex debate solves oversaturation. I'm going to answer this on the topicality debate, but even if they win this argument, all those reforms that they will possibly produce will fundamentally maintain the form of the symbolic order as it exists in the status quo, which means that the affirmative is a prerequisite to all of these things. This also answers every argument on topicality, counterplan, and the critique Alloway. In separate but positive expression through expression, setting up the drives for the facilitation of those drives in new control spaces. They did it. We wanted to reveal no ideology and reification operating under neoliberalism in one place. The fool to the other progressive moral horizon will experience a cycle of achievement always within the symbolic of the social small material changes, but only those minor enough not to impinge upon the sphere of the social. The progressive instigated reactionary political project bloom blossoms in the world. The project realizes its descent developing a necessary mechanism for structures to grow and grow. All sides finally got a progressive stance, lots of the reactionary stance of the other. The end result of the current state of affairs of no company that is green and or bathed in blood but devoted to peace like a computer part of today's planetary organization. The costs are binary. They offer an all nothing option, only an option as far as nothing is reified in material reality and all splints into oblivion. The separate clause operates symbolic assertion. This is genocide flanked only by a negation of the same claim in the abandonment blindness with the realm of material to commitment. The term was simply the realization's human world by allowing them to come into be. They say this nihilist argument. We're not nihilists. You are nihilists because you have faith in the possibility of transparent communication. We're all afflicted by the crisis of nihilism. They say that methods solve oversaturation. This card is literally a sentence of word salad, and it's hilarious that they would all claim that this is anything except emblematic of the fundamentally dissuasive nature of information. They say this disinterested argument. Oh, this disaster porn argument, this doesn't assume our war arguments. I'm going to extend our disaster critique on the counterclaim because it impact turns the hell out of that argument. This piece of evidence actually doesn't actually say anything. It doesn't give any example of what kind of mobilization would happen, and we control uniqueness. This evidence is from 1996. We have not mobilized empirically. Presumption.
We perform our solvency. It's a question of communication scholarship. If we win our, which is the role of the ballot arguments explained at the top of the debate, it means that we call that it means the cause is entirely dealing from effect information. It's uniquely dissuasive. It's depoliticizing and overdetermined. It's not possible to go back over the history of the West and draw up a diagram of ruptures and resistance. All that's possible is choosing modes of communicative exchange, and we are successful in that respect. We accelerate the form of debate to reveal its fundamental unreality, which answers their second argument. Here is a solvency advocate if you really wanted, but Janoshko in 11. It's not really a solvency advocate. It's mostly just a dope card. The vectorization of comments into a single mode encoder to decoder communication is ideological. Use fighter simulation simulations involved by commodity defense with exclusive polarity of encoder decoder. How a partner reunited intermediate of message, the code message, terrorize communication by possessing the encoder decoder, and after accepting space in the code dictates a passive information. What makes a model collapse a symbolic response beyond the code for efforts that make communication more supple, a democratizing transition. The core is a form of exchange irreducible radical context. First reading is still reading. Graffiti smashed the code, not decipherable by commercial message. Graffiti meant nothing. We were reticent to extremes, drilling the system's the designation. The anti-signal fires were up in the midst of full signs and it's awful ladder on context. How graffiti text travel on city and buses, subways are given in exchange in a collective anonymity. Painting can hijack the wall and annihilated. Bathroom graffiti scratched on the wall as opposed to the corporate instances of bathroom advertising has found its way into an entrepreneurial university. Carries its graffiti is not side of beauty. It's an antidote to communication critique debate. At the top, we link turn this argument. They look outside the debate and try to say that Trump is bad and say that we are oppressing them on their topicality argument as well as on all of their privilege arguments, all of their arguments about how we need to combat social justice. We are the ones that deconstruct those fixed status quo political identities, which is the reason why your first piece of evidence links to you and not us. Our argument about the Iraq War is that it was a non-event because all the effects of it were pre-planned. It is even more perverse and terrible for that reason. It's a critique of asymmetric warfare that still masquerades as a legitimate form of conflict. To accede to the reality of this war buys into a media narrative that this war was actually one that was fought rather than entirely pre-planned in the Pentagon. It wasn't. It was totally pre-planned. Their research methodology and the idea that they will pick out certain parts of the 1AC seeds to the exact kind of hyper-positivist will to transparency that we are saying is bad, which means the entire critique is a diss-ad to the form of this argument. This is kind of a hilarious picks bad argument that they have to answer permutation to both. Counterclaim. This is charity cannibalism. This is how Western humanitarianism works. We create disasters through capitalism. We exacerbate the effects of things like hurricanes, etc., so that they can become our adventure playground to justify ourselves. We then intervene, militarily cause more disasters, etc., to continue creating more and more in order to justify ourselves. These things become our adventure playground, especially when we are absolutely unable to do anything to influence them. There's a self-projection dissad, which is also a dissad to their framework argument. The will to project the self into a position of for or against war and military presence is uniquely disempowering. Only our evidence assumes this topic. That's our Shapiro evidence. The 1AC, it secedes to an agency-less vision of politics that is entirely pre-coded into a media narrative of soundbites, which is our MSNBC, Fox News argument specifically applied to this topic. Also, permutation do both. Words have no meaning. So they need to win that before they can win. The counterplan is meaningfully different than the 1AC. Topicality. We maintain the illusion of the Gulf states, which decreases the presence of militarized knowledge. If we win our communication theory argument, your way of reading the resolution is not natural but ideological. We affirm the resolution as a moment of symbolic rupture with order, which is our theory of communication. You need to beat this argument in order to say that we are outside of those words. Counter-interpretation. Your interpretation plus RF is key to rupture the communicative schema of debate. All other debates solve your offense, and T is not a rule like your evidence suggests. We agree to some rules that offer possibility of engagement, such as speech times and one winner. There's a transparency dissent, topical version, and switch side, or a will to transparency debate, to purge of all mystery and otherness. Your predictability, unfairness, link arguments is nothing but the reduction of this base to absolute machine's existence. That destroys value to life and means your form turns your activism content argument by acceding to the form of power before you're able to access those things. How the cross-apply our affirmative impact analysis, it means that you are complicit in the very capitalist militarization that you critique. There's a form of communication dissad largely explained on the case as well. They need to justify the way that they understand words to have meaning at all before they can justify any of the before they can gain access to the affirmative. Moreover, the attempt to make the university better conceals its genocidal nature. You should opt for semiotic insurrection. Anarchist news intent. University may serve as progressive, not for military research machines for social conditioning. They serve as machines for concentration or privilege for educated society. Can only exist by exploitation. Students are thought to be liberal seminars are complicit in the destruction they wage on a day-to-day basis. Low social death and acceptance of institutions leading to their own lack of meaning. Them to sell in university or resigning to enrolling in an acropolis to revel in where you're studying cemeteries with a cultural evidence with the cultural fetish for things they're fused. To say that an absolute fixation with zombies is a counteroffensive event is on the counteroffensive. It reduces every system it reintroduces that there's no liberation. The system is abolished by pushing it to its own hyperlogic. Students are insistent on saving the university diversity. Their vision of life is in search of all that makes life worth living. It is social death. Passion for otherness, this identification is already latent in our lives. Have been to a perpetuation of social death, the simulation of existence, reevaluation of zombie politics, was sort of the messianic shift that flaps open the cemetery university Baudrillard's semiotic insurrectionaries might suffice versus reality like a scream, and anti-discourse, the smallest radical element that cannot be called by any discourse they resist. They resist interpretation. Moreover, their attempt to side with the victim and with the victimized subject, what then makes them part of a moralizing crusade that justifies humanitarian war. Thomas in 15 Violence is connected to siding with the victim. The self-righteous indignation against those who cause suffering. The temptation for vengeful religious men has now become the main way to legitimate violence in the world. It's easy to use legitimate violence acts as how Khamenei motivated the Iran-Iraq war. Hezbollah, Osama accused America and Israel of killing the Muslim world. Counterterrorism too has been influenced by vengeful religious humanitarian intervention without changing the social dynamics that produce scapegoating violence can perpetuate the redistribute violence. Libya, Syria, Iraq, Bosnia, Kosovo. The humanitarian intervention may not end violence. It redirects it towards new scapegoat solidarity with victims, turns the West into solidarity and moralism generated by scapegoating violence. The world produced Assad, Gaddafi, Mubarak, Pinochet, Mugabe, Milosevic, and Saddam. The attempt to blame evil others leads to a variety of violent moralism, crusades, jihad, colonial pacification, saving the barbarian Africans or indigenous from themselves. Our argument is a prerequisite to them being able to access any of their militarization bad arguments. Our argument is that we all agree war is bad. This is a hyper-liberal community. However, we're also invested in those wars taking place. They are our adventure playground. It's why we don't become political in this activity. It's not possible. Only the act accelerates that spectacle to reveal its unreality. They need to beat that argument before they access any offense that they've read in this debate.
Okay, so are you good for stuff?
Yeah.
So your last argument, as well as an argument you've made on presumption, is sort of that you expose the flaw of politics by accelerating it and showing their flaws through
Showing?
over-identification.
Showing? We've criticized revealing. So, try again.
You've just said we over-identify to expose the flaw.
Right, and then you tried to understand my over-identification as a mode of revealing. Our argument is that...
I didn't say revealing, I quoted the Tracy
You
which
said
said
showing.
expose.
Showing.
I thought I said exposing, but this is irrelevant to what I'm saying. How is
Perhaps.
this not a form of irony, of over-identification with what you
We have not made
critique?
it. We never used the phrase over-identification. We have said that we accelerate the form of debate.
And how is it that you accelerate it?
That's weird.
What?
How is it that you accelerate it?
How?
Yeah, how?
This is our argument, that we catch debate in a trap of its own making. We will prove that the communicative model of debate,
What's the trap of debate?
Yeah, what is
the
it?
trap of debate's own making, is that it is always defeating itself. Right?
How?
So this is our
These
argument.
are
We will prove that transparency is bad transparently.
No, but how is...
We will prove that information is
once
bad using information.
So
we will prove,
that seems to be the warrant in our Wallace card of why irony is bad, is because you do the things that you say are bad to try and expose why they are bad, but you never actually give a
right,
solution.
but how does that assume debate and a liberal intellectual community?
It actually is about
so the problem
argumentation,
with your
but that's
Wallace
fine.
card,
No,
hold on, this is important. The problem with
I
your
have a new
Wallace card
question,
says that it's an
please.
entirely
You,
negative
I'm sorry,
card.
I have a new
Okay,
question.
fine.
You've on presumption you were like, but we have a role of the ballot. I just missed it. What is that role?
Well,
of the
it's
ballot?
not exactly a role of the ballot. It's more of a question of the role of this space, which is to decide about the merits of communication. The question of this debate is about the model of communication that we want to endorse. We've introduced two pieces of evidence about
And
this.
how is it that you've determined that this should be the role of debate?
I said the role of this space.
The role of this space.
We don't have a prescriptive argument about
Just
all
why
of it.
is the role of this space to determine the merit of communication?
Why? Well, it's a prerequisite question.
How?
Because this is a communicative activity. It's like, if you can't defend that we should communicate, you obviously should lose.
Your whole framework
But
model is like, we should
could
produce
one
models.
argue about other things and presume that communication is possible
That would
so
be
that those could be
ludicrous.
stasis
You
points?
could argue for those things, but if you argued for those things while simultaneously conceding that communication was impossible, you would lose.
So if
Because you would have conceded that information
is
wasn't
impossible,
possible.
why vote affirmative?
To accelerate that,
To reveal it.
yeah.
How do you to accelerate it and reveal it?
To create, so our evidence defends the
So
example.
you are defending
our evidence
reveal now.
No.
Reveal
Yeah.
your
What? Our evidence defends graffiti as an anti-semiotic counterforce
Oh wait,
that.
tell me more about that graffiti. Sorry.
What do you
Just
want
tell
to
me
know?
more about your graffiti.
Like,
works.
tell you about it? I mean, our evidence is about how that reappropriation of signs and signifiers that were ultimately meaningless and undecodable erected a schism in the very foundation of Western semiotics.
Be interesting. Thank you.
No problem.
The we meet was we maintain the illusion of the Gulf.
Yeah, the Arab states in the Persian Gulf, which decreases the presence of militarized knowledge. We have the Janoshko card that I just read.
Mm-hmm.
We have this anarchist news evidence.
Who wrote the anarchist news evidence?
I don't know.
It's fine, Marge. I'm good.
Anarchistnews.com.
I'd rather.
And moreover, the question of qualification seems to beg the question of a lot of our critiques of information. So.
I'm okay. 8:45. Sorry, no.
Sorry, can I have our flash drive back so that I can get you the one and I when the time
I gave
comes?
it to you for your speech or for the situation.
Touche. Thank you.
Okay, orders, presumption with an overview, counterplan, the critique, and then case breakdown.
Can I ask? Wait, before you're done, can I ask one more question?
Yeah, sure.
There was a
Wait, hold on, do you want to ask us?
Yeah, I'm gonna take a prep test with another question, if
Okay,
that's
great.
okay with you too. There was a point in the 2AC where you were like, this card doesn't assume debate. Do you have any cards that are about debate, or was it
Well,
just
we
like...
have made a bunch of arguments about debate. We have contextualized
Yeah, I think we have
our
too,
evidence.
and I think we
Poorly.
contextualize our evidence.
And your
as well.
evidence, and the way that you ask all those cross-ex questions, things like irony and such, that doesn't assume the nature of a closed intellectual
I'm just
idea.
asking if you're saying like cards have to be about debate, or we need to properly contextualize evidence.
We have made the argument that we will use evidence to defeat the very idea of using evidence. Evidence, facts, information, all of it is
Okay,
contrary
thank
to
you.
its own.
817, that sounds kind of ironic.
Nature of images.
Tyler, you're gonna order one more time.
Of course, presumption with a quick overview, quick-ish. That's a lie, it's actually gonna be a little bit long. Presumption, counterplan, K, case.
Bold lies.
I'm sorry.
Forgiven.
That's
A wise conscious
Presumption.
person would
easy
say,
forgiveness.
you lie!
Presumption,
Sweetheart.
You don't hold grudges?
Never.
Very
counterplan,
different people.
Critique,
critique,
and then case straight down.
Presumption, counterplan, case. Great.
Anyone not good? Sweet.
You may now begin.
The analogy to them being professors wasn't just an analogy to try and make a joke. Our arguments have all their arguments contextualized very, very well in the academic space, but not to competitive debate arenas. They dropped all the warnings about why their arguments literally apply back to them, and that you have to explain to me in the poster on how they can escape their own offense. That was conceded in the 2AC. So if we make technical mistakes when they make 1,000 one-air answers with 0 cards, and then explode them in the 2-air, you should hold them to a high bar and evaluate truth over tech on these individual questions. That we have a litany of warrants about why they are literally saying nothing, and all this links to them as a double truth versus the integral reality thesis. This is offense. They are worse than nothing because they reify. This makes more sense with the wisdom table. King and ID, ironically, there's right hyperiodic butcher fails the same there. Air butcher one double right critical hyperiodic because they're so thoroughly embedded as an effect to sensitize the reader. 2 global meter butcher 1 percent makes a hyperiodic grow an appropriate form of resistance that would be insisted upon a more rigorous research work which would prove and but from being howling into hyperbolic assertion. Second is their mediated knowledge K and all of their arguments about language. It means they should lose on presumption cherry. In 97 is run for reconstruction. We are certainly not the first to ask if there is those things Christian knowledge why showing that they're listening to what the radical have to say after all of reason and knowledge are the only belief system that follow everybody powerful losing the power to make them reality so it becomes difficult to find a basis for powerless to criticize social range with significant philosophical problem. Thirst is their language arguments. They literally say in cross-text language has no meaning. Either it means that you can understand the certain resolution of words as common stasis points and that their meaning and counterpretations don't make sense, or it means that you can't deliver a ballad for them because you're using signs and signifiers that they say create violence in the first place forces any of their mystery or disclosure arguments they disclose to a certain extent. They gave us evidence you know was mysterious, vote negative, and don't give them a decision. Look, we've been down this road before. They're going to spin all these arguments that should prove that we also can, and clarify our topicality arguments to sidestep their offense. All their evidence is so generic and general that it's applied to both of us, or doesn't apply to topicality. No, we have a new link to this argument. Their scholarship standard and their arguments that debate as polity scholarship links more to them. You should give this evidence from Anarchy News 0 weight. It has no author. It was written for debate rounds and is overly particular to Shapiro's the cinematic body in UC Berkeley. Here is the part of the article that you fucking forgot. Anarchist News in 10. This is a paper I wrote semester about Berkeley. I didn't want to publish it since I don't believe it's that great, but a friend asked if I could do it so it could be said in a debate tournament. I'm sorry if this seems like an anarchism. This is a fucking double turn with all of their scholarship framework. Seriously, they should lose the debate because they read evidence that loses in their own framework. It's not an ethics challenge, but it's a reason why they are actually worse than anything we possibly read. We took cross-ex time to frame this point, and they both said that scholarship alone matters, and that it failed to put an egregious example of our scholarship. There's also a double line. Either the argument links them to because they also take place in the university structure. Seriously, it's the University of Michigan's money coming to Binghamton to debate in front of a room of people about Baudrillard, or if they are the revolutionaries breaking the structure, then universities aren't as monolithic as they think. How did they break out? Well, everyone remains coerced. We can show you this universities aren't redeemable. Lou is our terminal impact, which Marjorie to boost and Justice Harvey in 6 months release higher education, quantification, colleges play, development of virtues, I understand for vital students engagements, issuing civic virtue courses and fostered by institutions on accident or experienced students developed by research for journeys throughout the adult life. Showman's observation helps see this a critically important role colleges play if their formative years in the contributes development that demonstrates how schools can function. They will reproduce as a result of disastrously flawed and correctly be done apply. Guiding distance greater the discount for the greater desire to be reproduced, and hence the articles in the practical would highly effective way would be to make use of pragmatism to sustain campaign. It's not about radical change. It can be emphasized partnership in racial facilities and easily accessible setting work and create individualistic opportunities. Members of candidates can be pragmatic to determine whether the work is making a real difference. Do we knowledge learning and most effective when means work collaboratively solve specific problems, focusing universal problems are the best in the first place. Now the rest of the line behind, they say they are performative solvency. Affect is not a sole question because it has unintended consequences that they necessarily can't solve. Content also matters too, which is why they respond to our themes. Now, we will internally turn these arguments. Their appeal to the performance of the 1AC literally reifies all of their offense about Trump. We can win on this alone because a flat prioritization of form over content boosts the far-right Schaefer and 13 both right about that. Affect biological diversity, political politics is the one zone of fracture century people and national alternative environments where authenticity trumps ideology communication. Tell us that the form of narrative body practices, but these will contain almost thrown frustration, but for example, if you use affect elements to create this not the percentage from pulling foreign economic policy, the affect aliens are sailed in a relationship where anticipation ultimate good policy justice will involve cause and happiness, even if on point of our actions, flows of affect are more complex than the simple binary of presence and deferment. Now, our offense applies in the debate space too. I dress like a slob, and Dallas wears expensive clothes that are still really funky. People could dismiss us on form, but they don't. They care about content, and that matters, and that's why debate is awesome. The people who fill in isn't the left, it's Schaefer saying Trump fills in. Now, the second solvency argument was acceleration and rupture will also impact her in this. It fails as an AJ goes, over-focusing on ripping down the which doesn't prepare new violence that stands away, exterminating 13. What happens in the way of rupture is one of the big challenges. Then he forgets to bring light to natural election, but also creation too soon. Often scholars focus on romance rupture differences in the approaches he makes it much harder to use ask useful questions going forward to inform the real revolutionary change. They have no solvency, only risk of a term we win their framework can appall us. In 13 groups within dominant ideology, open new space for waste, but there are no guarantee that transformations make hold or worse, not spin or reaction vaccines. A victory tells something about political context or increase in power is not inherently revolutionary, everything should happen in the same conditions. They resist usually do. You should air negative. Debate in civil society have some serious issues, but consider what fills in. They have not offered a clear vision post which means that anything could fill in and be worse. Their last argument about graffiti literally makes no sense. It's not contextual to the debate round. How do you use graffiti to change a resolution? How do you use graffiti to change bad MPJ practices or fundamental inequalities that exist in the debate space? They do nothing, and their appeal to focusing in the round is fundamentally worse. They don't solve community-wide goals. Rare and 13. Many in the debate argue that speech acts are already said critical concept of debate could affect inequalities in and outside of the debate community. This accounting for construction of competitive debate application should be viewed as typically not or rejected just for specific empirical events or general theory possibly almost every context when it comes to attempts to use debate theory to change the and if creating change to arise as much more likely theoretical studies have been conducted in a particular application of radical theory through debate claiming to create change present possibly to fail to show any probability of success. The probability should be presumed to be zero. The counterplay debate, the permutation was just a testing competition. I'm not going for their charity. Cannibalism's linked to them too because they are trying to save individuals from this mass problem of communications. That's why they said it was a fundraiser, which is the exact form of charity that they're referencing in the first place. This hero evidence and will to protect will be answered in the 1 hour on all of their arguments about mystery and mysteriousness being key. The critique, I'm also not going for C permutation, just a test competition. Their picks bad argument is reject the argument. Not the team, it didn't affect the 2 error. There's no deterrence effect overall. Also, their own application of theory is another link to our presumption double-blind. It applies a static notion of debate and certain rules that should be operated, even if it was a normative argument instead of a theoretical one. It's one that creates confines and limits what the negative can do. Their link term isn't net offense because all of our topical version of the affirmative solves it. Case! Their overview, they say debate commodification, one or two evidence indicates that debate is fundamentally different from civil society. People who watch MSNBC and Fox News are totally different from individuals who do debate who go through a pile of evidence, are able to contextualize and understand the evidence that's presented in the first place. Second, it's not an intrinsic form of the debate community writ large. It's the reason why we need reform, and all of the 1 hour will explain why our topical version of the affirmative and topicality arguments are able to inflate that in the first place. They say that they solved the implosion. I already did all this analysis about why rupture is bad on the other page. Now the rest of the line by line, the irony stuff, they have said they are not it, so when it inevitably comes back in the 2 hour, remember there is conceded defense to it. Our Wallace evidence says that it serves as exclusively negative function. It's critical and destructive, and they lack any tangible solution or superior alternative. Their only answer was oversaturation and rupture, which was also above. Now the debate solves oversaturation and meaning arguments. Reform is possible. Most of this was explained above because debaters aren't the individuals who are watching. Their Galloway evidence is wrong. One, it is tied to unpredictability of debate. They use Galloway to say MSU is Deep Blue, which is a chess-complained computer. Then that same computer is bad, but they have no understanding of alterity, otherness, and Deep Blue can never play because it's doomed to maximum capacity. They say this says Michigan is a meta reflection of the game itself. Several framing issues. Subpoint A is that they're not a meta critique of the game itself. They play the game, follow certain rules, have their posse, and are the politics of separation. They maintain the hegemony of symbolic values. You criticize justification testing, but they'll be the first one to point out that our warrant is flawed, that we fail a rejoinder test. This subversive always gets consumed by the game and the play. Second is that topicality doesn't make us the Deep Blue. The catastrophe doesn't cause the Persian Gulf. And your evidence is literally about video games, not our argument. Holster 13 in 2000 special issue of games, culture theory's relationship between Bolger's work and game studies, and one of the first journals, 210. Bolger has worked their way. The issue explored topics such as World War II games, Bolger's interest in gameplay and principle separation, Galloway 7, and Bolger's interest in the technoculture in the first place. That shouldn't be contextualized to other scenarios, otherwise it is fundamentally flawed. Now the next argument is our uniqueness and nihilism, just that all of their understandings are fundamentally flawed. This meets their Pepsi challenge when they are like, we need to prove that words have meaning because their philosophical essentialism leads to a new totalitarianism through faulty descriptions of when or why things started to disappear. Make them answer the question, at what point did things start to appear? Otherwise, presumption is offensive and devastating. More examples prove it in the first place. Our positive evidence indicates that individuals are able to cooperate globally and have conversations because of the technology that they suggest. Fill in. The last argument I'm going for is no sort of hyper-reality. It lacks nuance and total calendar 97 models of tech are supplements to interaction. It should not be hyper-real in technology. Merely negative domination, arrogance for deconstruction of oppositional hyper-real, this later stigmatizes slightly inferior considered just about any of the road hyper-real not. Debates between distinction forms useless and enhanced community can be deemed materialist as mistake. Which only valor is not technological activity. Generally, Bolger fosters the simulation. Significant changes are taking place at extreme claims. For the postmodern ruptures, you take violence to enduring communities from the past, and the fact mean that many ideas of their origin, modern eras, epochs, and arise at the precise moments between requires one grass communities of 10 with the past as well as the present and the future. It's important to capture the communities from the modern as well as this context to make sense of our current predicament. I lied. There's one more argument there. Disaster point arguments are wrong. Their literal only argument was that the war scenario was different with no explanation or contextualization. Our arguments is that these sort of forces of fear mobilize people in a positive manner. They're going to say charity, cannibalism, but I've already explained why this links to them, as with every other piece of evidence there.
Alright. You ready?
Yep.
Read this card about affect. I'm kind of confused why you did that. What is affect?
Affect is a precognitive response to a certain appeal that can eventually sort of spill up to emotions, but it's sort of...
Why does this have anything to do with what we've done in this debate?
I think the link is on the start of the presumption page where you say you perform solvency.
Yeah,
and
we performed...
You de-emphasize... Let me finish. You de-emphasize content in favor of...
Okay, this gets me to a larger question that I think you have a fundamental misinterpretation of what we mean when we talk about the form and content of communication. What do you mean? What do you mean when you say... when you draw a distinction between form and content? You mentioned close and Dallas. I don't understand.
Yeah. So like I can do that example or a different one. Content would be if we took our speech docs and submitted them to the judges. Form involved the performance of both us and you all. The example of like Dallas and me is like even though I'm wearing a Bucks jersey.
So that's your answer. Just to be clear, that is your main answer to our form content distinction, correct?
Well, we've turned the prioritization of form, but yeah.
But you also are operating under an understanding of form that's completely different from the one that we're talking about. So my next question is, why is reading unqualified evidence bad?
Well, you didn't just read unqualified evidence. You read evidence that was written for a debate round. And
well, it wasn't written for a debate round.
No, that's like
you're right.
judges
It was
can
written
go to
for
the
a
article
paper and
then
was
someone published it.
For a debate round.
For a debate round.
Okay.
You're reading evidence
why is that bad?
produced for the sake
Why is that bad?
Because it takes away the sort of disinterestedness that academic standards generally prioritize.
Disinterest is good?
Generally, yeah.
Is disinterest possible?
Obviously not, but there is a sliding scale between someone going to someone else and saying, hey, I liked your article, can you publish it for this debate round so we can win rounds on it?
In the same way that when Will accidentally said expose and that we meant something different. When we say disinterest, we don't mean everyone is like robots just arguing.
Okay,
trying to
that's
be as
I was
objective
just
as
asking
possible.
like why that's bad.
We
I really
mean-
was not asking that. I understand what you mean.
Because
I
when they're
understood it the first
undergoing
time.
an experiment
Okay,
with politically
I
motivated
have
interests,
more-
then obviously the result is going to be.
Why is
what
how about this? Why is
the
reading
parameters of
qualified
such
evidence?
that
Why is reading qualified evidence good?
Because we think that there are a variety of important educational themes of the affirmative that should be tested. When y'all were in cross-sex and said to me like, did you read it? Did you learn it? That matters. But the way that we should digest
We don't
this
think that
information-
matters. We definitely don't think that matters. So
Then why would
really,
I
can
did
we?
you learn something?
We were fucking with you, like we always are. Can we?
It would be
What is
nice
your
if
argument?
answers in
What is
cross-sex
your
could be-
argument?
Sorry,
What
can
is?
I just say this? I know it
No,
would be nice
you
if
can't.
in cross-sex.
What is
please
your
don't silence me,
argument?
that's
Can you
kind
not?
of
What-
sexist.
Can you cut us? Not
It would be nice
I'm
if
trying
in
to ask a
process,
different
instead of
question.
trying to actively fuck with us when you've read new arguments, if you could answer our questions.
Okay, our argument is that
Because
knowledge
sometimes
and
we are
learning.
trying to give it.
Our argument is that knowledge and learning are not good things.
Then
What
why
is your
are you
defense
here?
of those things?
Well, there's a couple of them. One is that the only way that we're ever to make a tangible impact in terms of broader social justice concerns if we have the educational
So
foundation.
social justice.
It's also an end in and of itself. We should know about Baudrillard. I know it sounds weird coming
Social
from me,
justice,
but
and
like,
we should know about Baudrillard.
there's,
Those are the two
there's
things.
more, but like cross-sex and I can't explain that.
Okay.
I don't know if you like, care.
Don't worry.
Okay.
Oh, so is it my job to send it to the?
You can, if you want. Sorry, I should have given it to Tyler. But you can also just give it to Tyler and he'll email it to everyone.
It's okay. I'm great with computers.
Well,
That's
thank you.
good because I'm not.
Is it on here?
Yeah, it's called
don't
one in
see
our
it.
NDT round the fort.
There's only two AC and NDT 4, which is
Yeah.
I saved this on the desktop. I'm sorry. I'll just give it to Tyler.
That was
Yeah, I
good.
caught that.
That was a good catch.
That was
Yeah, that was impressive.
I'm sporty.
You do the order already.
It's topicality.
Yeah, touche.
The one in R will be overview will be longer than the two NCs on presumption if that's relevant to you.
yeah.
The one in our overview could very well be half the speech. Sort of my
Okay.
thing.
Okay, should be sent, but obviously take a second to pull that.
Got it. Alrighty.
Hold
Okay.
on. I gotta grab
Oh,
a new
Jake.
pad of paper and this one died on me.
What is death?
Good question.
That's a whole nother debate.
Yeah, next time.
Different one I see.
Okay.
Okay. Debate 101, if you want to impact turn something, you have to answer the other team's impacts limits that way. I'm not reinventing the wheel after the 2AC did not answer them. Informed decision making and critical thinking should come first. They have dropped that second order testing internal link turns. The affirmative, we know less about their affirmative, and as a result, you aren't challenged to think deeply enough on it. The 1C was so in depth on limits that I dare each and every one of you to vote on no impact to topicality. If you how do you better be able to explain how their unexplained buzzword explanations have any tangible impact in the grand scheme of things. It might be true that debatability is not the largest magnitude, but all of their critiques are not about debate. They're about broader structures that no one in this room can change. We have the only in-round impact, ironically enough. We've also internal link turned the whole affirmative with Ruddick and Condit, which also was not answered. Their ivory tower groupthink is ready to challenge every theory, but their responses are stifled because of an academic agenda. Your gut reaction is right that informed discussions and the pop quiz on war pornography that the 1AC is that second order testing is the best form of critical thinking, that the quest to blow up everything we know because imperfections is actually a solution. The most likely outcome of the 1AC is violent predisposition that brings back even worse forms of discrimination than exist now. Violence and suffering scale exist on scales and they make it so much worse. We can win on this even if they win all their turns to T, which by the way is also a justification of why we have defended education as important in this debate. In cross-sex, they are making a lot of frames as before you can win this debate, you have to defend why words matter, why education matters. False. They are affirmative. It is their job to determine why these things don't matter for them to win, because if not, voting negative for the status quo, i.e. the null hypothesis, should be your presumption accidentally blows up 2AC15 on the K is the nexus question of the debate, you should remember that Joe shat the bed on extra T in the 2AC. If they meet, they clearly do more than the resolution that's comparatively worse than not just meeting at all because it invites negative strategies that don't apply when negative ground is already questionable. Every wasted moment of the 1NC matters. That 2AC said literally nothing on this. Don't clean the sheets for them. Now, the interpretation debate topical affirmatives must quantitatively reduce physical military presence via government action. They have a counter-interpretation, but because they forgot to define the phrase we meet and interpretation, debates are over. Asserting artificial constraints on the topic with no definition is the worst of all worlds. One, it's self-serving and anyone can do it, so it doesn't solve limits. Two, it's also the worst form of will to transparency, which they have said is bad. We at least justify our constraints on the topic with reasons to prefer. They just shove the Michigan KM model in your fucking face. Three is the bar for interpretation should be high for new affirmatives at NDT. Imagine if every new affirmative at the NDT could talk about anything and just claim that beating the affirmative is a prerequisite to winning. Topicality, impact terms are just reasons to prefer an interpretation in disguise, but you can't invent a definition for them, and they obviously violate ours. Their we meet argument is actually the opposite of the we meet. If anything, you should decrease the illusion of the Gulf via this topic because it's about decreasing U.S. military presence, but more importantly is the affirmative must decrease physical, quantitative military presence via government action, which they do not do. They don't get new we meets in the 2AC. We ask them in 1AC cross-ex, and they just sandbag their answer, which is an independent voting issue for negative ground. Now, they say counter-interpretation, yours just ours, that was answered. Their will to transparency arguments all house all of this answers all of their limits impact terms, by the way. We aren't calculative thinking, stifling of thought, or attempting to eliminate difference or any will to transparency and limits. We've defended why we think we have a better form of debate. MSU has been going for TITA forever, which logically disproves the violence in its name that their impact terms are about. A distant lash out, not in this round. Who thinks critically under their interpretation? Who calculates? Who wills to limit what the debate is about? Obviously the affirmative. They weren't just inspired 45 minutes ago to save this off the dome. They wrote this as a plan to limit negative arguments and printed it out ahead of time. Stasis ensures a reasonable probability that both teams are prepared to adapt to the other side to new arguments because they have a background on the literature. Yes, they're still unpredictability and innovation, but debatability and second order testing is possible. That is comparatively better internally tuned to their critical thinking. There is no link to their uncertainty of meaning argument. They, as much as all arguments on framework arguments, MSUST can't impose a fixed meaning, only persuade judges that Michigan KM's interpretation of their meaning is wrong, the same way that Michigan argues against our practices of our meaning is wrong. We don't say this is the only way to interpret military presence, but that this interpretation is the best to allow a balance of debate so that we can balance school, debate, work, family, etc. And we have to persuade the judges on that argument, which proves the self-reflexivity of debate. We are not the state, which is actually what all your unpredictably good arguments are about. Michigan ought to be unpredictable when they engage personal anti-state politics, but there's no advantage to that unpredictability in debate setting because it fails to become a testable method. There are, however, two TAs. One, it excludes people. All students have to balance other things in their life with the rest of their lives. Two is the endpoint of this critique of predictability results in impossibility of dialogic debate, which unlike the state doesn't flatten or exclude difference, but negotiates them, limits and opacity, foster agnostic respect, which is key to democratic citizenship, and fugitive democratic movements turns their critique McClover in 11. Speed is needed to create a political list to cut those believe in the intense requirements of mutual practice and the possibility of successful changes. The agitation of cooperative the capital, which instructs the populace on every I heard of November on flux disrupting attachment, including those related to the community. One of the things that agitation can emerge from temporal love to be able to not look to solve the pass on pattern or exclude the difference of liberation contingent by the difference and attempt to negotiate them. The theory of emphasis location and members that rhythm public contemporary the extent of the liberation important so far as they control the politics of a quicker pace on habits of to negotiating plurality, the multiple specific self which has been not the means to look at it intellectually and controversies are to create a random state to reclaim the public space and most interpretive state this around citizenship between the plural players of political elections will develop to have to make possible robust democratic citizens democratic movements which help slow down the world market slow down the world. Their predictability arguments were answered about, but breaking down predictability is self-defeating and impossible. They say we need to justify the meaning of our words. We did. We read interpretation and had arguments for why they are preferable. We don't have to give all words meaning to show that we have defined them as a meaning. The anarchist moves evidence was answered in the 2AC. We don't moralize. We are claiming to be the victims of violence of KM. I can defend myself. Thank you. I don't need you. 2 is the extent we do. The affirmative does as well. When they say siding with the victims, that is clearly what the affirmative is doing when they side with the victims of their affirmative. They say their prerequisite that was answered in the overview. This is self-serving. Anything can be a prerequisite, but negotiated stations should come first. The counter role of the ballot should be to defend the topic and use the affirmative's justifications as advantages, which is the topical version of their affirmative. They can deconstruct meaning while also challenging military presence.
I think we got 8, 19. Okay, go.
chamber.
Make sure I get these things in the right order. The case, the counterplan, presumption, actually, let's do topicality then, presumption.
Sorry, can you?
Yeah. I made some adjustments, right? It's the case, the counterplan, topicality, and then presumption. All right.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't find my there it
So that's a yes.
Okay.
is. Alright.
Great. Debate is a pornographic carnival that attempts to will meaning and one-to-one correspondence out of the topic in the game in the same way as the Powell Doctrine, according to a hyper-positivistic mode of exchange. Abu Ghraib did not eliminate this. It confirmed that this results in a will to transparency, totally pre-coded events like the goal for a form of constant implicit violence with an attempt to reveal the atrocities form, which ignores the way the image awards itself the same as survey for fresh meat of the system of militarization. Everything must be revealed, which leads to Rumsfeld's quest for unknown unknowns. It leads to the impact of zero casualty war, total annihilation of people reduced to information glyphs, to drone sites, Agent Orange, and black sites, which cause massive violence. You should vote affirmative to insert the F as a counter-simulacrum into the research agenda of debate as a model of communication. It's a will to interrupt the consensus of avoiding transparency. It's a guerrilla tactic like May 68 or graffiti in the Bronx. It's like the love bug virus. Find crashing of financial representation, repersonalizing media forms. It's like pussy riot. We rupture debate according to our anarchic vision using it to politicize the university. It's key to creating cutting against the form of language, which is our accomplice in this debate. Our play with language is a form of semiotic interaction that interrupts it like Warhol. It's try or die for the F. Information is dissuasive. More information only leads to more time on Trump, which means you are counter to your own intent. Your MSNBC versus Fox News, which means you don't stop the war movement, doesn't lead to anything. Sham said the university's argument I will extend here. It should be an independent add-on that you consider first in this debate because it evaluates what your role is here. Send that piece of evidence that the university is a site of social privilege and necropolis sustained by looking outside of it through pornographic images that keep us from thinking about the violence that we can conduct here, like hotel staff or the silver arm bathtubs mind for the third world, needing to forefront our complicity to destroy debates. Innocence use its operating evolutions, a wake-up call to our own reality that exposes its militarization, which means we forefront complicity. They say the card's not about so what, you still have to answer, which you didn't. It's a logical professionalization that is exactly how the university sustains its most violent impetus, which means only we solve your Galloway evidence that we are key to actually making the university not filed by forefront its complicity in introducing shame. The Galloway evidence, you've answered the wrong one, which proves information is dissuasive, or that you're a robot. The progressive stance only naturalizes the right one. Liberation is semiotic, but exploitation is materially denaturalize the reactive side, a cycle of achievement that plays the fool for the right, but all sides unified event. The end of society turns reactionary. You say information works, this doesn't answer the form of information which overcodes its possible determination. Access to the content of the Wallace evidence is not our argument. Also, the F is an entirely negative, which means even if it doesn't apply, the totalitarianism argument with will to truth leads to Stalinism and Maoism had totally recursive and constructive histories, which means it's more descriptive of you. The Keller argument is our argument about repurposing media forms, which means that solvency. You said this fear mobilizes Abu Ghraib, only mobilizes people to desire more images of war, which means it motivates people to be even more violent than the counterplan. You've basically conceded the charity cannibalism argument, which includes a crucial uniqueness argument. In a second, the West invests in spectacles of poverty and suffering in order to justify its own reality principle, wash away shame. Disasters become an adventure playground for righteousness. They are the new sentimental order that creates sufferings itself so it can spectacularize itself and reclaim the moral high ground, which leads to moral interventions the West produces its own catastrophe. We need to accept that, interrupt this will to transparency, let the shame not be washed clean, which causes a uniqueness argument that the West would collapse on its own. It's in the status quo, which is an argument they have an answer. No new arguments to the block. As they said, it would be unfair. You conceded the self-projection dissent, which impact turns the topical version. That's the superior argument. Will cross-fly into topicality, imagining yes, no endorsement of the presence in towards a monomaniacal subject to be obsessed with power through transparency, which reads instead of semiotic conformity makes challenging military presence impossible. We need to enter the terms of the debate into question themselves. The framework debate, framing issue, and order for them to win this debate. They miss when imposing a transparent hermeneutics of meaning onto the resolution is worth the consequence of constant opposite violence. You should be more than willing to give up on limits if the outcome is unethical. Game or affirmative is a prerequisite. It was the impact of this argument. We maintain the military presence, the illusion of military presence, the goal of decreasing the militarization of dollars, the mastery mystery argument is inevitable, which means the app is key, which forefronts our counter interpretation, your interpretation powers are which we thought as a permutation. 2, your forms of arguments are affirmative is key to politics. That's on the case. We have functional defense like the topic isn't a rule. We agree to speech side fairness cues inevitable because of new arguments at the NDT, which also checks your limits, explosion arguments. Switch side debate means you should be prepared for this argument. We've had it for contestability. We should be able to have our values about images of war. You should be able to defend those with Lacan, Marx, Deleuze. But do fairness proves the affirmative is relevant to the topic. The will to transparency, deciding extending the vote yard argument to be evidence which impact turns their topical version and the limits and predictability arguments framework mirrors the logic of the Powell doctrine. A prior reading of the 1AC through language and waterboarding it to get the truth endless. Lash out as a result of this, at least a drone strikes and also more non-framework teams mystery remains the object, which means they produce the opposite of their intent. You should vote against their form of semiotic violence because it destroys the value of life as close to value to debate that exists in the confrontation with new knowledge. The communication decide their vision of the game is an echo chamber of information experts that we can't escape its own spectacle, which means information is truly dissuasive where we just retract research year after year, which caused by the anarchist news evidence their vision debates a traffic infrastructure that doesn't produce any outside knowledge. They human rights dissent basically concede it's an independent impact where they said that we make violence worse as a form of moralization that actually leads to the ability to say that we are the victim, which means you are more like those unbelievable. Your limits arguments are just the will to mastery through forms of knowledge. Limits are broken now. People in debate don't follow them. You make the judge into a gatekeeper for the community. You also make violence work, which is the link to our moralization argument. You say no, that's a reason to vote. Affirmative presumption defeats the will to mastery, which says the affirmative. It reveals the void of the heart of debate. Extra topicality links to all of our pig's bad offense, which is just a positivist research method that is violent. The new half arguments are inevitable links to all of our offense as well. The sandbag argument does as well. The MSUA's violent argument for scholarship, at least to Carl Rose, Jason Patil's, and Colin calls now the presumption argument. This is
Topicality links to our critique.
yeah, extra topicality also links to our critique, which is above and the 2AC now. The presumption argument. This has been our argument throughout the debate. We are impact turning their model of understanding changes, moving from measuring the status quo and calculating each moment, like the Powell doctrine attempt to plan everything, translate unknown unknowns into nodes, which translates into suicidal destruction, and begets the Iraq War, which destroys value life and trying to measure every bit of life, for example, which means the form of their argument overdetermines the content. They say this argument about debate, our complicity with the foreign debate is our offense. We are like graffiti that gets commodified, but means you have to look at it, which draws attention to the form of things in the status quo and your way to work, which means double turns our offense for us. Your argument about mysterious, we are master illusionaries. Yes, we are prepared to conduct these illusions against you. We are prepared, but each time we pull the rabbit out of the hat at the end of the debate and reveal that we are topical the whole time. MSU is just a surprise, which means we are unique. We are not Trump in the form of our argument. You overdetermines yours and impact turns all of your offense.
817. T presumption case.
T presumption case. Got it.
You gonna leave the door open?
Yeah.
Hopefully no one comes in here and shoots you.
Once again,
Not
the
really
door is
friendly.
not going to stop an active shooter from killing us all.
You brought the sword.
Wood doors can't melt metal bullets.
There you go.
You can barricade a door. So,
If only we had some steel beams.
with people. Death.
Fine.
Okay.
Anyway.
Anyone could. Ooh, not 448 soon. That'd be too big.
Never mind.
Anyone could? This debate is about what you want debate to look like, assuming that you have teams still in the tournament question their vision of the topic, which, by the way, they still haven't explained after the implosion and rupture that would occur in the first place. Is Indiana ready for the new iteration of the Spanish affirmative that clearly places topicality? Is Texas ready for the tiny single weapons policy affirmative they justify? In the other rooms, is Harvard good for Michigan's 14 fucking new affirmative that you don't have time to prepare your debaters where solvency concessions prove that limits are the central question versus the written evidence? It was definitely conceded. You can roll back Ricardo's tape. It says that in-round focus doesn't change anything because there's too many competitive motives which are unable to solve. They also conceded all of our rupture defense, which is what they're going to go for. That they implode debate. You have conceded that rupture fails because it results in worse balance failure in the first place. That it doesn't have a tangible plan. You should be highly skeptical because they have conceded our presumption argument that debate is relatively stable in the status quo, and that there are things to tweak, but literally imploding it and starting from scratch leads the most people to fill in, i.e. you've conceded the Schaefer evidence that says your prioritization of the affect and form over content means that the right and Trump feeling, which was your 1AC offense in the first place. They've also conceded all the analytics that their global impacts aren't shifted because we are in one room of one tournament with 20 people watching, that there are broader questions of the Bush doctrine and then the Iraq where they're inaccessible. Now, given all that, limits outweigh. The only offense I'm going for is limits and debatability. Given feedback I've gotten from people in the past, first is necessary for second level testing. The terminal impact is education. Why would they read the affirmative if it's not important to learn about it in the first place? Also proven by their cross-ex question, even if they were just fucking around with us, it matters that you should care about understanding this content in second level testing. Second was our critical thinking argument. It's necessary to defend your advocacy and move forward in the first place. You've also conceded evidence that we've read from Paul that indicates there's an external impact as it relates to being able to use these arguments in another place. They have also 100% conceded an argument that when there are massive limits on the topic, it makes it harder for us to not flunk out of school, spend time with our families, and get a chance to go back home every once in a while. Yeah, that's a little narcissistic, but it matters for all of you students and coaches. Now, there's a couple framing points for all their topicality arguments. One, it was a new affirmative, which means you should hold them to a super high bar. There was also a ton of blippy 1AR arguments that you should let them reinvent the wheel on because I only have a finite amount of time, and Joe's obviously going to sit on like 2 of them and explode them. Don't let them get away with that. Second is stasis limit means you should be skeptical of their impact turns, even if I don't deal with them well. It's because we didn't have pre-round prep time with our coaches or enough time to research their arguments, even though I thought we did a pretty good job. It means that you should prioritize our truth of our arguments over individual techie arguments. That was also dropped in the 1AR. Third, they've triple indicted our indicts of their academic standards. Our content and erotic evidence indicates that it is a cruel academic ivory tower that has a groupthink that is impossible to access in the first place. Now, the rest of the line by line, they say self-projection is bad. It was the argument that you wouldn't tell me when I asked in cross-text. Our focus on true presence is important. Our evidence indicates that it's necessary for states to point of the revolution. It's not an education offense or a politics argument. Nothing leaves this room, but it's a question about what the topic should look like in the first place. They say charity cannibalism. One, the 1AR makes a big stink about us dropping it. We just didn't. First is we don't link our topicality arguments about limits. They're link about the counterpunch creating disasters, proves that ending capitalism creates hurricanes. Doesn't. Second is that they link way more. They literally said our T arguments are on the level of drone strikes, and that presumption is the logic of the Iraq War. More importantly, the 1AR explanation of other teams don't have access to T is a white savior charity cannibalism. They can't beat us on our own, which proves that it links them all these arguments. We're also not moralizing. The Britain evidence in the 1AR proves these arguments in the first place. Now, there will to transparency and mystery arguments that doesn't answer topicality. Mystery exists within the topic. That's why KM probably doesn't know what LCS or DDG stands for. It's littoral combat chip. Plan-based resolution makes debate unpredictable and destroys stasis. We solved your offense because our preparedness argument means that the negative can have relevant topic knowledge to apply to unpredictability. Second is there's no answer to that they make it worse. Mystery for whom they wrote this as a plan to limit negative arguments back in Ann Arbor. Only the second order testing ensures topicality is a mystery both sides. Third, they've conceded 100% the McKelver evidence. Start your decision with it. It says blank calls for mystery make dialogue impossible, which doesn't flatten or exclude difference. Key to challenge the Iraq War and drone use that they claim in the first place. Debate is also predictable with new affirmatives, which is your own argument in policy formats. They say we meet, you obviously don't. All of our hyper-reality defense on cases undercovered and proves that we're able to solve oversaturation of media and illusions. That exists in the first place. Also, this proves the double-bind argument because if they somewhat link to the topic, they link to all of their offense, which is the thesis of a presumption offense. They say counterinterpretation doesn't solve because we don't have any politics impacts. We also doesn't solve the limits because there's arbitrary ties to the topic. They also concede that it is the will to transparency because it is allowing some states to point. They say skew is inevitable, that was above a sliding scale, and even if there's some explosion, we are in need to admit, or if they say that we had things that we could have said, that also proves the will to transparency and limits outright ground because they can get unique link turns. Also, thanks fucking much for telling us in the 1 hour that's too late when we've already put the 1 NC out there. It's impossible for us to have rejoinder. They say commodification decide the charter solves all their arguments about oversaturation of media. We're not MSNBC or Fox News or debaters who go through hundreds of pages of scholastic research and are able to understand and compromise arguments best. If this becomes a scholarship argument, remember, they dropped the double turn that they should lose because of their anarchist news evidence, which was written for a debate round, has no qualifications and contextualizes things that weren't in the first place. They say anarchist news. I already alluded to that in the first place, but you have also conceded a card that we read that says that uniqueness arguments go for us because the university is reformable through things like debate, which is proof of our limits argument. They say human rights is said that was not charity cannibalism. They say topical version of the affirmative fails. All of our arguments is that you've conceded a counter role that allows to test the plan's desirability through the resolution of question. Everything you've said can be justification. It solves your offense, and even if new are inevitable, there's still a skew. The presumption arguments. I'm not reinventing the wheel here. I already explained why they are a fundamental double bind. Are a fundamental double bind on a lot of these arguments. But things like mediated knowledge are impossible. You conceded that language meaning nothing means that the judges can't give a decision to you because they will use science signifiers. Now here is what they're going for. They say double turn. They solve our offense with rupture. Those are the two cards I already explained. You don't implode debate. That was the Ritter evidence, and if you did, it would fail and make things vastly work. They say form over content, but I already did the work on Schaefer to explain why affect only and focusing on that form results in negative consequences. They don't solve anything. And seriously, tell me what graffiti does to change serious problems in debate. Case. I answered everything else on the top calorie arguments. Their only arguments was Galloway. You've conceded that it's in the context of video games, which means that it's not applicable in the first place. The university stuff and try or die was already answered in the full. Even if they are counter simulacra, it's unable to solve. The last argument was that fear is bad in the first place. That's not something intrinsic to debate. Look, every one of their DAs to T. Ask if it links to them, ask if it's intrinsic to our form of topicality, and then consider if we could access it because they didn't disclose and because of the limits to set.
509, I believe. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay.
think I left the page. But I guess the presumption or case first? I don't know.
Dude, I don't mean to be rude, but like.
Presumption, I guess. Case. T.
Okay.
Everybody good?
Any stance on the door?
Okay.
Open, thank God.
Alright, everybody good?
Communication is not a natural but an ideological form. In debate, we reduce that which we represent to information blips that we trade on the market of speculative capital. Debate is a closed informational schema that does very real violence to that which it claims to represent. Debate is MSNBC, is the Stop the War movement, it's complicit in the attempt to make the whole world transparent, to pin it down within language. As long as we win this argument, even if they win nitpicky technical issues, we have impact turned the form that every single one of their arguments presupposes. We have impact turned positivism. We have impact turned every single piece of research argument, impact turned their dialogue argument, and their attempt to limit the topic at all. They are complicit in the genocidal war on terror that is taking place on a global scale. Their whole argument is that we should make debate more transparent. They will maybe win some link differential arguments that say that we do this too, but all of those things are fundamentally defensive. We have the only chance to break out of these things. Their double turn argument is our solvency. We are the implosion from within. Remember that our evidence indicates that no system is abolished through liberation like what they talk about, but rather only by pushing it to its own hyperlogic, revealing its own fundamental absurdity. We use the communicative form of debate to trap itself in its own trap. To trap itself in its own trap, we will prove transparently that transparency is bad. Our 1AR gives the example in the context of debate of things like of the way that the 1AC will be commodified by your ballot, but that will insert it into the research commodity of the research curriculum of debate, just like how the situationists were able to create mass marketable commodities in the revolt of May 68, just like the graffiti you see on your way to work was mass produced, copied in a number of places, but you still see it, reveals that other worlds are possible. Their Ritter evidence is probably one of their only chances to win the debate. This evidence simply says that we should use exterior to debate norms to try to solve social justice issues. Our argument is not about social justice. It's about prerequisite question about the communicative form of debate that we implode from within. Crucial framing argument that your RFD saying this back to them will be the completion of the trap. It will be locking in the fundamental implosion of the form of debate, which answers their best piece of defensive arguments about how we link to ourselves.
Yeah, all these presumption arguments basically answered by that counterclaim.
The charity cannibalism argument, they conceded a crucial uniqueness argument that the way that the West sustains itself throughout the totality, and the way that debate sustains itself is through the will to transparency, through the attempt to know everything, through the attempt to know everything, reduce it to consumable objects, that without this good feeling of engaging with the world outside of itself, the communicative model of debate would collapse.
So we solve. Case weight.
Their argument is that our Galloway evidence is in the context of video gaming. That's just not true. You should read this piece of evidence. It says that all attempts of reform that remain within the logic of semiotic conformity simply reproduce the same conformity of values that ultimately proves our transparency arguments. The way that MSNBC versus Fox News simply confirms the will to transcribe the totality of existence within language and information. It's fundamentally unethical and a genocidal way of being in the world, so you should obviously reject it. Topicality. They need to win that the imposition of transparency onto the topic is a good thing. We have huge dissets to a lot of their arguments, and the 2NR is a fundamentally defensive speech with very little impact framing offense, so you should not mine through their evidence for them to find impact calculus arguments that they have not made. They say that ruptures fail. The role of debate is a question of communicative model. We're not trying to create a total rupture with everything that exists. Rather, we're trying to create a more ethical mode of communicating and engaging with the world. They say the Schaefer-Trump-Villain arguments. We have not made an affect argument in this debate. We have not asked you to evaluate the emotive form of our speeches. Rather, we've said that the communicative form that those things take place, i.e. the exchange of hyperpositivist information that eliminates mystery, is one that is unethical. Now, the truth-testing arguments, that is the need to test things to understand them, our argument is understanding is bad, something they have never at all engaged in at any point in the debate. You should maintain that intelligence of mystery. Value to life? What the fuck is their answer to that? They dropped it. Very easy way to vote affirmative. They have conceded that the attempt to expunge mystery from debate, even if there is some mystery included in their vision of the topic, is fundamentally one that attempts to limit it. The attempt to limit information destroys that which makes life worth living. It destroys the subtle joys that one can engage in, We access a maximal internal link to this. They say that their interpretation can have some unpredictability. That's like buying a lottery ticket every day. We actually offer you the ability to max out value to life. So the affirmative is kind of like betting millions of dollars on a losing hand, and that gamble, that willingness to chance, is our internal link to value to life that they do not access. We have a couple of conceded defensive impact arguments that should be enough to mitigate those, considering they have no impact calculus comparing their impacts to our impacts. New affirmatives in debate and new affirmatives, and they're totally unpredictable, rely on completely absurd interpretations of the topic. Even with plan text, are totally inevitable at the NDT. So either they get to fiat out of all of this offense, or counter-interpretation, their interpretation plus RF, fiats out of it just as much. They say that people will flunk out of school. How and why? This is non-unique. There's a proliferation. They've conceded a uniqueness question that there's a proliferation of non-topical Fs taking place in the status quo. Why haven't people completely quit? One more F won't trigger this impact. They say it's a new F. It wasn't. We read 2 new cards in the 1AC. They say charity cannibalism links to us. It's a question of trying to have a meaningful relationship to these things. They say mystery exists within the topic. Answer that above. They say that we need to engage in dialogue. We impact turn to dialogue. The universities thing, just don't read the card. Vote on all of our genocide arguments that we have explained throughout the debate very well.
Good debate.
Good debate.
Good debate.